And thank you so much for joining our lesson on lunar magic. Now, we talked a little bit about lunar magic a couple of months ago, but this is such a huge subject that we can go on and on about. Today, I'm going to be referring out of this book mostly. This is called Planetary Magic by Denning and Phillips. I really enjoy this book. It's a part of their series of magical philosophy. This is book 4. Understand that a lot of things that are being pulled out of this book are considered to be high magic. A quick overview and reminder of what high magic is. High magic is known as ceremonial magic, or CM. This means that there are usually robes, regalia. There are a lot of words said in different languages, kind of where we get the traditional idea of a wizard waving around a wand and enchanting things. High magic or ceremonial magic is no better and no worse than low magic or natural magic. It is all the same energy, just different modes of conjuring it. So with that in mind, moon magic is part of a much larger system. We call this planetary magic, as the book refers to. Every planet has a specific kind of attribute. Now, when we look in the book of Denning and Phillips, the first thing they say is like this really nice definition. Astronomy is the science of that which looks and studies the stars. Astrology is the science that interprets that information. And planetary magic is a science that reveals how to use those interpretations to improve your life and the lives of others. You are learning how to harness the magic of the moon and all the other planets if you choose to. So the moon, let's think about it. The moon has a 29.5-day cycle, meaning that we go from a new moon to the new moon through a full cycle of waning or the moon growing bigger to a full moon to the moon growing smaller back to a new moon. This is a moon cycle. Originally, this was used by the ancient peoples to help understand how to grow crops, when appropriate seasons would be. And sometimes you'll see that moons have these funny names like pink moon or wolf moon or something weird like worm moon. A lot of those different names come from other traditions like the Native American traditions and their magical system. Remember that in the postmodern era that we live, we are so lucky to have all of this magic information be revealed to us. And through practices like Wicca, kind of get all combined. But it is important to understand where this information comes from and how we can honor it respectively and respectfully. It is not important to have a firm grasp on astrology. You don't need to be an expert in order to understand planetary magic. That seems to be a little bit of a misnomer. What you do need to understand is that just as the moon phases go from that new to full to new again, you're going to have the moon go through several zodiac signs. There is a whole different calendar that exists with the moon. Now, the way that the moon receives those different zodiacs depends on its planetation within the sky and what different constellations it's connected to, because the moon is now grabbing that energy of that constellation and reflecting it back to us. Understand that the moon itself, I've talked about this so many times, the moon does not create its own light. The moon is a reflection of the sunlight on the surface and reflecting back to us. The moon is in control of a lot of important things here on Earth. Most importantly, our tide system. The gravitational pull of the moon on the Earth allows our tides and oceans to have high tides and low tides. Without that, our water system would be completely still. And that would be a big problem for humanity. There would be a lot of issues. So I've often seen here on TikTok, people like to say that, oh, planetary magic doesn't have any real applications in the world because it can't be proven by science. Well, my dear friends, let me remind you that science, that how we understand it, is very new. It's about, give or take, 300 years old. And that before we had our Enlightenment period, where we discovered the trial and error version of science and mathematics, we go back to seeing alchemy and the idea of science and pseudoscience being interconnected as one and the same. Why? Why are they interconnected? Because they study the natural world. To the ancient people, there was no difference between magic and science. It was one and the same. And I do see that is seems to be a revival that is coming back. So I think it is quite foolish to say to these young students, young people on TikTok, saying that no, these ancient people who created and discovered astronomy, astrology, mathematics, bullshit. They don't know what they're talking about. I think that's very foolish to completely dismiss the understanding of the ancient peoples. And that is where planetary magic comes from. Way before ceremonial magic, way before written history, there were 7 planets that we could see with the naked eye here on Earth. And when those planets have certain attributions, they have an effect on the human psyche as well as the Earth, essentially. So you don't need to worry if you're working with the moon and you can't see the moon. Do not worry. The moon is still affecting you. I can guarantee that. You can see this in many different places in life, but often there's no science to back it up. Why? Because scientists don't care. They don't see any, and probably, in my opinion, don't know how to study something like that. Do you study hormones? Are you studying the way that people act? Like, there's so many different levels here. So yes, planetary magic takes a little bit of blind faith. But my dear friends, if you are in esotericism, you're taking many leaps of faith. And I think that this is probably the least one that you need to worry about. With that being said, let's dive more into magic, specifically moon magic. Moon magic is the feminine or the yin side of life. It is the darker side of life. No, we're not going to be talking about false darkness and true darkness in this case, but just darkness as femininity, darkness as the mother, the womb, most importantly. From darkness creates life. Now, when we study the moon, that there's a lot of different interpretations here. The moon is very caring, it's very nurturing. Now, there's also a dark side to the moon where we have the rage and the anger of the feminine. You may have heard in our modern pop culture that feminine rage is a force to be contended with, and it certainly is. So we often see the moon in this picture of the triple goddess. Now you'll see it's the waxing moon, the full moon, and then the waning moon. This was created many, many centuries before it was written down. We often see it now in Starhawk's Spiral Dance and Margot Adler's Drawing Down the Moon. Then both of these were published in 1979. And to be honest, they only capture a very small portion of what this symbol means. This symbol is prehistoric. It is pre-written history. So our understanding of it is very minimal. So you may know that this symbol is attributed to many goddesses, and the goddess that you are working with may have a specific moment that they work with. For example, we're going to start with the waxing moon. So the waxing moon is when the moonlight is getting bigger. This represents the maiden, the young woman. This represents purity, youth, new beginnings, rejuvenation, excitement. This is the time when we are here at the waxing moon that you are putting in your intentions, right? You are working towards your goals, you're working towards your affirmations. Now, there are other goddesses who are attributed to the full moon, which represents the mother. Remember, round, we got that womb thing going on again. Full moon represents fulfillment, fertility, ripeness, potency, caring, and nurturing. During this time is the most potent kind of magic. Now, the mother can do both, we can say destructive or creative magic, black or white magic. The full moon can do whatever kind of magic you want. There is no detriment to doing either kind of work. Now, lastly, we have the waning moon. Now, this is known as the crone, and the crone is really the part of witchcraft that pop culture is very obsessed with, right? We see women, witches who are hunched over, they're really old, they've got the big noses and warts. The crone does not need beauty to have power, where the maiden does. The crone knows the power comes from within herself. And we see that this also represents completion in a lot of ways. We also see that here it's like a death coming to rebirth when we see the crone. So we also see this reflected in people who have periods, menstrual cycles, right? So when a person who is bleeding, that's going to be in their crone phase versus when they are young and they are not quite fertile yet, they're going through their maiden phase. That's when their hormones are probably pretty high. And then we have the mother phase where we have the moment of fertility, ovulation for some people who have periods. So we see this reflection in both the feminine side, right? So in prehistoric times, they would say women have periods. And oh, hello, that is not what we wanted. So that's where we get a lot of moon magic, but moon magic does not necessarily mean for only feminine people. Anyone can practice moon magic, any gender, any age, it does not matter. It is for everyone because it affects everyone equally. So let's talk a little bit about what other kinds of magic you can do. So we're going to walk through the whole system, starting with the new moon. The new moon is when there's like a very little bit of light. So I remember Unlikely Mystic and I had some difficulty. There's a lot of confusion about this on the internet. And it took some time to figure this out. So there's something called the dark moon. Now, the dark moon is when you are completely cloaked. It is like technically the end of the crone cycle. It's when you can't see the moon at all in the sky. Now, this moon can be used for a lot of things. I use it mostly for uncrossing and doing an unhexing. Same thing can be done reverse if you wanted to do hexes or curses up at that moment. That would be during the dark moon. This is the last phase of the moon cycle before we get to the new moon. Now, you may get some pretty fancy apps, or if you have an old school, an almanac, where you can actually go into these apps and find out exactly how illuminated the moon is. So right now, it's just called the moon, and it tells me exactly how old the moon is. It tells me exactly how much illumination there is, as well as the current sign. Now, when you get different apps, you'll notice that sometimes apps are going to have different understandings of what moon cycle is happening. That is because there are different modes of astrology. You want to be using topical astrology if you live in the United States. There are Vedic astrology, something completely different and used in the East. So with that in mind, we now, what do we do during the new moon cycle? This is a couple of different things here. I would really say that during this time, it's about seed and intention planting. So if you're starting a new project, start the new project. If you are looking on going on a journey, whether it's inward or outward, new moon. People, you can see online that there's a chance to like release what no longer serves us. Absolutely. I would personally think though that fits better into the dark moon. You can do any spell during any time of the moon cycle. Just understand its effectiveness might not work as well. So for example, let's say that you decide to do a hex during a waxing moon when the moon is getting bigger, when this is a time for 2 weeks that's about manifesting it and bringing things in. It could still work. It just may not be as effective as if you were releasing something or sending something in the darkness. So remember, the moon cycle is 29 and a half days. So remember I talk about this, that there are 3 days of energy for the moon cycle. So you have the day or the new moon and full moon period. Let's be very specific here. That is because when you look at the calendar here, you'll see that the moon stays in signs for give or take 2 or 3 days. Now, when we look at that, it's the day before, the day of, and the day after. You can do full moon or new moon magic on any of these 3 days. Totally acceptable. Understand, though, that before and after may not have the exact potency that you're looking for. But if for some reason you have an obligation or you don't feel well, do not stress. You can still do the magic. Ultimately, you're using the moon and its energy as a tool. Remember, all of magic comes from within you. You invoke it. So, waxing moon. I'm so sorry. My nose is it's the feathers on this thing. Like it's like coming up to my nose, man. Okay. So, the waxing moon is when we are working towards our goals. We are working towards the highest, our highest aspiration. This is when we're climbing up the mountain. This time could be really hard. This is where you're rebuilding things. You're building something new. And understand that when you go through this phase, of course, you can do spells to help you every day if that gives you the motivation. But a lot of working with the moon cycle is also psychological and mental. Why? Because when we get to the waning side, when the light is shrinking, this is a time for rest. Remember, this also represents the menstrual cycle. So this is a time of releasing. This is a time of shedding the uterine lining if you have a uterus. But it's releasing negative thought patterns, toxic relationships, anything that hurts you or makes you feel weak, you get rid of during the waning moon. So during the waxing moon, you bring in whatever makes you feel better, whatever boosts you up, whatever helps you feel powerful. And for some people, that's doing a little ritual every day. For some people, it's doing affirmations every day. And these are the affirmations where like you're growing towards something, not releasing something. Then we get to our full moon. Now, everyone loves the full moon because we have these beautiful images of women dancing naked around bonfires and witches doing witchy things. And the full moon is so powerful. Now, understand that the word Luna, which is what we call the moon in ancient planetary magic, it's not called the moon, it's called Luna. And when we use the word Luna, a lot of images get invoked, right? Like lunatic. When you call someone a lunatic, that means they're being empowered by the energy of the moon. The moon has a lot of different faces to it, right? So when we look at the moon card, oh, I thought I had my tarot cards behind me. I do not. When we look at the moon card, you can pull it up here. I'm going to pull it up on my computer. The moon has a lot of different meanings when we look at this card, right? So ultimately, there are different, we talked about the different phases of the moon. In the tarot card of the moon, I'm looking at the Rider-Waite deck specifically. You see that the moon and the sun are interconnected. This is a representation of the moon not creating its own light. The second thing that we're going to see in the moon card is that weird little crustacean. Why is there a lobster hanging out in the waters on the moon card? That's pretty weird. Well, it's representing the unconscious. Waters of the unconscious mind. That is what the moon represents, right? The moon is the feminine. The moon is darkness. That is your unconscious mind. So when we work through our moon cycle, we are manipulating our unconscious mind. So we are waxing towards our greatest goal. And then sometimes we wane where we go back into our unconscious and release negativity, release crystallization that should not be there right now. We also see on the card, we have a dog and a wolf. Now, dogs and wolves, like they're pretty similar, right? Well, except for one thing. Dogs are domesticated and wolves are wild. Again, we are having the duality of the moon here. We have the bright side, the domesticated side, and then we have the dark side. We have the animalistic side, all created under this very complicated new and full moon cycles. So you could spend a lot of time meditating on the moon in this card. What is this card bringing into your life? What does the moon bring into your life? What does the moon want you to release? Ultimately, our moon is our mother, the nurturer, the caregiver. And it's all up to you on how you want to work with her, right? What do you need in your life? I personally follow those moon cycles really closely. I have so many apps that help me understand exactly like what's going on, what the moon is doing. I also need to know, like for me personally, how is the moon conjuncting with other planets? Because remember, those planets also have attributes. And if it's squaring or trining or conjuncting with the moon, there's going to be a different kind of energy. Planetary magic is so deep and there's so much that you can do here. And luckily, it's fairly easy. It's natural to us. It already lives inside of us. The ancient people used it for growing food and harvesting. I personally found when I stopped learning my life or like living my life Monday to Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then I had like these work hours. And I was like, oh man, I feel so constrained. I don't feel natural, right? I'm in this paradigm that has been created for me. Well, the moon is, while it does have structure, it's not constraining. Why? Because we have time to rest. Our modern society does not give us natural time to rest. We are almost treated like machines in this late capitalistic society. And when we can start looking at our, so let's think of this, right? We have new moon, 3 days. We have 2 weeks of waxing, 3 days of full moon, and then 2 weeks of waning. That's how I live my life. I have 2 weeks of extreme productivity, then I have like the peak of productivity, and then I go back down the mountain. I take a rest. Am I always good at it? No, because my capitalist mind is like work, 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 productivity, productivity. No, that's not how we live. It's okay to function at 50% sometimes, especially with people who have periods. Your body requires rest. It literally will put you out of commission. And you hear in ancient cultures that like, and there's variations. Like for example, in Hawaii, we see that these women actually were revered when they were having their periods because they were closest to the goddess, that they were given special crowns of flowers and adored as the ultimate representation of the mother. Whereas we see in more Abrahamic religions that the women were actually shunned and put in caves because they were seen as dirty. There's many different representations of how to view the moon cycle and view periods. Now, let's talk a little bit about period magic or menstrual cycle magic. This is, I know, a little bit focused on people who just experience the menstrual cycle, and I apologize for that, but it is important information that needs to be talked about. So, this does dabble a little bit into blood magic. So of course, we're going to do some warnings here is that we should never give our blood to any entity unless we are 1,000% sure we want to create that strong bond. We also should recognize that when we are bleeding, this is a specific kind of blood. This blood is not dirty per se, but it has been used. But that being said, it also has the capability and potency of life, right? So when the uterine lining comes out, this is a form of life. And this has been used across cultures and magic forever. The use of period blood in magic, whether it's been like people used to put their blood in vases because it was considered to be sacred. Wild. Could you imagine having just a vase of your period blood hanging out? Like, I don't know. I'm not down for that. But like some people do that today, and that's totally valid. Some people will anoint their candles with blood. And that's okay too. But again, remember, using this kind of magic is so strong and so binding. Why is it binding? Because your blood includes your DNA. It's very similar to using your hair, but on even a more intense level because it includes cells. Hair is dead. Blood was alive. Blood has the ability to create life. When keratin dies on your head, it's not alive anymore. It doesn't carry the potential of life. Your blood does. So you can find so much information about how people use this blood. I recommend like learning and researching, if you choose to do this, how to make it not smell and how to preserve it safely. And that's all I'm going to say about that for right now. So during the moon cycle, as I talked about before, we kind of get this idea of lunatic. Some people get heavily affected by the new moon, myself included. I only recently learned through my order how to stop the moon from affecting me because I'm a water baby, right? Water affects you in a certain way. So I'm getting pulled and pushed all the time. So if you are feeling yourself like maybe you're like, wow, I am super emotional and I'm not menstruating. Nothing bad in my life has happened. Like I'm not like, why is this? It might be because of the moon. So during this time, there's a few things that you can do if you're feeling a little bit of a lunatic. Grounding. You are up here in the air, right? You're with the moon, you're in space. Earth is masculine. So ground yourself in the earth. You can do this. I actually learned this is a really great way to discharge energy is taking handfuls of salt and just meditate with the salt for a little while and imagine all of that energy being pulled out of your body. The energy of the moon, and it will be really helpful to know the energy of the sign that the moon is in during this time. So you can focus on the attributes. So hypothetically, let's say you're feeling really emotional, a full moon in Scorpio, which is coming up this weekend. If you're watching this at the time of April 23rd, sit and imagine all of that fiery water getting pulled out of your body. If you feel like really like on defensive, right? Because a scorpion has its tail, it's going to strike at people. Take that venom out of your body, remove it. So when you're done meditating, you can just throw that salt into the kitchen sink. You can dispose of it. Do not throw it outside because salt can really affect the ecosystem of plants. It does dry them out. So be conscious of how we discharge. And also you're removing a kind of like negative energy. So you don't want to give that to plants. That's not very nice. So the next thing you can do is learning to shield because you don't want to self-sabotage. This can happen during full moons or new moons. So shielding is very much like warding. In fact, I would say it's almost identical. So during this time, you would want to think of, again, what cycle of the moon is affecting me? What is the zodiac sign? And then if you don't want to create a spell jar or like a little jar you can carry, or even a little pouch that you put in your bag with crystals and herbs that are going to give you protection. And remember, we're going to want masculine energy because the moon is feminine energy. So you want to have something that's going to counteract that. I would recommend here rosemary, great example. Dill, great example. Those are the two that come to mind right now. And then if we're looking for protection, so make sure that when you get a stone, it's not a feminine stone and it's not a moon stone. It's not gonna work for you. A lot of, and we're gonna get into this later, I think next month when we talk about spell creation, is making sure that your correspondences work together. Sometimes if you're not careful, they can cancel each other out. That being said, let's think about this. So when we look at the moon here, so the moon is a water, right? It's water energy. If we're using masculine energy, there's lots of types of masculine energy, right? There's earth masculine energy. There's also water masculine energy, fire masculine energy, and air masculine energy. So when we look at herbs, right? Well, if we want to calm ourselves and ground ourselves, well, we definitely don't want masculine air energy. That's not going to help you. That's just going to create tidal waves. No good. We've got to be careful and make sure we don't want to use fire masculine energy because that's going to cause the water to boil. And that's not good either. So now we're left with earth masculine energy. That's great. Earth absorbs water. It's going to calm it down. It's going to create mud. And then you also have water masculine energy. This one I would be careful with. Having too much water could drown you. So think of it like that. When we look through, the elements are really important. The elements are in everything that is here on our physical plane. And everything has a correspondence. That's why we use references. That's why we use Scott Cunningham. That's why we use the Planetary Magic book. And when you get really good at it, you can memorize them, right? Like I have certain herbs that I use pretty frequently because I know my zodiac. I know how I'm affected. And it took me years to learn this because you go through certain cycles every year. And I say, oh man, that Pisces full moon, that's going to fuck me up. Too much water. So when you can, again, really important to be a scientist as an occultist, write down your data. Write down how you're feeling on what moon phase. If you can't write it down in a journal, write it down in your phone. That moon app comes with a journal. So there are lots of ways that we can be postmodern witches and occultists with using different kinds of tech and learning to understand that even though we are on our phones all the time, we are using computers, that stuff up in the sky, those giant stars we see at night, those affect us too. Whether it can be proven or not, I think is irrelevant because the ancient people believed it. And that ends our lesson on lunar magic. Yay! Oh, Katsu, you're so much fun. So we're going to open up for Q&A. This can also just be a time to free chat and share your experiences. I love to hear from my students and what about this lesson really spoke to you.
Hi. Oh my God, I can't hear you. Is that
Hi.
okay? Okay, okay, sorry. I want to know if we're gonna talk about blood magic later, like really later on, or no.
Yeah, we'll talk about blood magic later. A lot of blood magic first is going to be just like the deity series, right? We're going to have a 201, a 202, and a 203 because blood magic has such a long lineage and history that it's important to understand how different cultures conceptualized it. And then you got to get into the Christianity where you talk about the blood of the lamb. So there's historical aspects, practical aspects, and then warnings.
Oh my, okay. And I wanted to know because I saw that a lot of on TikTok. People use period blood on their face. Is that okay or?
I mean, I wouldn't do that personally, but I also don't like blood. It's totally okay if you want to do it. But I think, again, it's about purpose. Are you painting? What are you painting on your face? What symbols are they using? Are they doing it to be edgy and cool? Or does that like have a purpose? Like when I work with Lucifer, he asked me to put the trident on my chin. I could do that in period blood, but again, that's an offering at that point, right? And then we got to talk about the difference between offerings and honoring. Like if I wanted to honor myself with period blood, 100, do it. If you are going to do it as a working with a deity, be very careful that you are specifically saying this is an honoring of you or this is an offering to you. Your language is incredibly important when we come to that point. Just realized I could not see the chat. I can see it now. So all of the recommendations are going to be focused in CM. You can find some folk magic information. You're not going to find any more than what I just gave you. So I'm going to post some of them. So there's one called 776.5. I will post in the chat. And then of course, this book that I referenced here. This was like my first book, learning about all of that good stuff. Learning about the correspondences for all of the different planets and understandings. I gave you the correspondences in the lesson, like very much a like 101 basis. So you can check that out as well if you don't want to spend the money for it. And now the next book that I have is the 776.5 tables for practical ceremonial magic. Woof, what a title. So here it's really important when you get books like this to read the introductions, especially if you are not a part of CM, to understand how this stuff works. I can't teach it to you, but this book will. Do I have any plans for the upcoming full moon? Oh my goodness, I have so much I have to do. So I've got like 4 candle spells, and this is all for me in my personal life. I've had a lot of friends go through. April was such a month of transformation and just like low-key a shit show. Like, okay, a lot of people have come to me in my life, my personal life, asking for help. So I've been putting it off because I got my second dose, so I've been kind of sick. So I've got to do that. I'm also going to be creating some stuff for Etsy. So we're going to have, because you guys are here, I'll tell you, we're going to have a lot of people have been asking me for card protection bags. So we're going to be doing that. We are also going to have the dream bags. Again, I have sweet dreams. A lot of people have been having difficulties with nightmares, and I have Florida water. So if you live out of the country, you can buy the Florida water from me, and I will send it to you. I know it's really hard to get out of the country. Oh, right. They're the little half size. Yeah. So it's really great. So that's some of the stuff that I've been working on. I've also got tons of little jars left. So if you have anything that you were really looking for, just let me know. You send me a Discord message. I am open now. This is only to Patreon. Okay. I am doing custom spell work right now. So if you send me a message on Etsy, we will talk about it. I haven't decided to open it up to the public yet, although you can see it on my page. I will do custom work for people. So if you're looking, I know that some people are having difficulty with like negative tricksters or energy spirits. So working on breaking like curses and stuff like that. Happy to help. You are very welcome, Moonfry. What are you guys doing for the full moon? Oh, and I'm doing like a big releasing spell, big one, like one that's going to take like, I've got like literally like 50 things that I have to go burn outside. So my neighbors can all be like, woo, what you doing now? From Mary, this is a little bit off topic, but is there the difference between worshiping a deity and working with one? Oh, thank you. Yes, I love my pillow too. Unlikely Mystic, and I got this for at Halloween. So worshiping, in my opinion, I do not do, and I do not recommend anyone do, because you're giving away your power, right? Like you can honor a deity. You can say, I honor and respect your power. Worshiping is like kneeling and getting on the floor and being like, you are higher than I. You are more grand than I. You are more important than I. I do not do that to any deity. And I don't recommend that you do either. I really think that takes away your agency. Now, that's a very left-hand path perspective. If you want to honor any and worship any deity, go for it. It's just a personal preference for me, but you are more than welcome to do that if you wish. I'm celebrating an anniversary of sorts in my magical path. I plan to spend this full moon with my goddess guides and emotionally connect from Moonfry. Well, that sounds really nice. That sounds like a lot of fun. I know I'm getting around the full moon right now because I'm having a lot of clairaudient experiences. So like I keep hearing like a set in my ear being like, you got to do these things. And then I get stuff from Lucifer who's like, hey, pay attention to me. Here's some music. And I'm like, oh my God, there's so much happening. And I'm just in my apartment by myself. Oh, Katsu, go ahead.
I have a question. Well, it's more like a proposition. If you could do more protection spell for the occult room.
Sure, we can
So,
do that.
because like we do a lot of magic, like prosperity and everything, but we did only one protection spell, and I want more because I want to really protect myself
Yes.
before putting a lot of other spells. It's just a suggestion.
No, that's great. I stepped away from doing that stuff because I think I thought people thought it was boring, but I am happy we can do as many protection spells as you like.
I don't think it's boring. I want to be protected.
Okay. Well,
And
that's sad.
okay, and I wanted to know on the full moon, will you do a live doing like your little candles or anything, or you want to just be on yours,
Not
just
for
on
this
your own?
full moon. I won't be doing that this full moon, but I will certainly do that in the future. I would be happy to do some candle magic workings. I know that I will be doing a lot on the new moon because I have a lot of client work that I need to be doing. I will be later today posting my monthly full moon reading for all the zodiac sun signs, so you can check that out. Now, here's a question for you all: do you prefer TikTok or Instagram when I do those full moon readings? Instagram from Moon? Insta. Oh, okay, great. Then yeah, I'll do Instagram. Great. Yeah, I've been doing it on there for a while. So we'll continue to do that. Um, from Mary, that's a bit of a strong word. I'm not ready to work with them yet, but I do want to honor my family. Yes, you can definitely do it with a candle. So many of you have seen the altars in my home. My whole world just got rocked today. My goddess was like, I need you to like move everything. So when I will often have a candle burning as an honor. So I give a set candles pretty frequently as just a reminder of the burning flame of my love for her. That's really what it means, like deep down. And you can do a lot of things when you're honoring. You can put, so remember, left hand is magical hand, right hand is mundane hand. So in your left hand, just put the candle before you light it and just hold it like this, create a nice little vessel. And take the energy from wherever you want, whether it's your heart, whether it's your third eye, your crown, doesn't matter, creativity, whatever. And just, I would say minimum of 3 breaths. Imagine encapsulating that candle with a color and imagine that color sinking into the wax. All right, Instagram it will be for sure, everyone. I know that Unlikely Mystic has been in my house during full moons and seen some crazy stuff happen. Like full moons for me are the most potent and the most active. That's when stuff moves, or like it's really for me, it's like at like 5 days before is when it starts getting weird. Stuff moves in the house. I start hearing things a lot, and people will see things in my house, and I'm like, yeah, it's a party up in here. What about you? When do you feel the moon energy the most? Yeah, Katsu, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
I would say like more of the new moon,
Oh, okay.
because my deity is really about the new moon, so I can't sleep until I do something. Like literally, I cannot sleep. So I need to do at least just a little something, and after that I can sleep. But other than that, I cannot. It's like be magical right now.
Do it now. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's like the energy I got this morning. She was like,
Mm.
you gonna do this? You've been putting it off for several weeks. You should do this right now. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do it now. From Moonfrey. Oh, the new moon and the dark moon. Totally. So I'm gonna do a little tree. I'll read you through the Luna. So just so you can get a sample of what the correspondences look like here. Now, a lot of this is going to include Greek and Hebrew. I'm not going to try to pronounce the Greek. So obviously the planetary sign, at least in ancient, we're getting from this ancient work, we see it's in the waning position, not the waxing position. You often see people write it as a waxing moon. So moon is just moon in English, and Greek is mene, Hebrew is le'vanaha. The planetary profile is intense, passionate, yet intrinsically cold, changing, glamour, dreaming, adventure, childlike wonder and delight. The sphere of the Luna has an affinity for the fluctuating tides of the ocean. The moon governs the ever-varying waves. The impulse of the moment, the transient pleasure are typical manifestations of the Luna force. There is also a strong cleansing and purifying aspect. Furthermore, dreams of the moon sphere are the potential realities of Earth. And that's where we get the manifesting, right? When we manifest with the moon energy, we bring dreams into reality. So here's some more information. These are like the magical numbers. I don't actually know what this is. I'll probably learn about it more later. It's kind of like a moon sigil. So the medieval number of this planet is 2. It's an anagram. So I'll pull up a picture of what an anagram means. Words. Here we go. Make sure I spelled that correctly. Great, I did. So I'm going to drop that in the chat so you can take a look. Oop, that's not what I wanted. That's the that's the website. It's weird, it's not dropping. We'll try something different. So you often see this for like, there's a, how do we say, in like psychology, you see this symbol used a lot as, why am I having so much trouble with this right now? You see this symbol used a lot in like psychology. There's a lot of different personalities. It's used in a lot of personality tests. It's a very ancient symbol and people get really into it. Here we go. Finally. I think my internet's coming. Are you guys hearing me okay? Good, okay. So it's not that, it's just me. There we go. So that's an example. You see a lot used a lot in Christianity. It's a very important quality. The colors of the moon are silver, the doi. We see here that the animals and mythological beings connected to the moon include the bear, the horse, the elephant, the cat, the hare, the deer, camel, dog, bull, cow, pigs of all kinds, the owl, and the raven. The mythological beings include the minotaur, winged bull, ram-headed serpent, harpy, and the hydra. Ooh, I didn't. So trees include, for Luna, willows, all willows. Willow trees are my favorite tree. I feel like this totally makes sense. Coconut palm, bay, hazel, papaya. Herbs associated with Luna include all white or purple lily flowered plants. All gourds, so squashes, cucumbers, melons, etc. That makes sense because the gourd kind of looks like a vagina, a womb. Peas, beans, and lentils, turnips, and yams. Incenses or perfumes associated with Luna include orris root, wintergreen, eucalyptus oil, and jasmine oil. Metals associated with Luna are platinum, silver, and I'm not sure if I'm going to pronounce this right, yttrium, Y-T-T-R-I-U-M. Other minerals include rock crystal, alabaster, mirror glass, and fluorospar. Gemstones include moonstone, alexandrite, and beryl. So once again, we talked about this planet, it's a moon, but we call it a planet. This planet represents the life cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Yes, Katsu.
Sorry, I have so much questions today.
Yeah,
Everything pops up. When you said manifestation, it popped up something. Can you like briefly, like how can you do a simple manifestation? Because I can't get the grip out of it. I really can't.
So there's a lot of ways to manifest, right? So manifesting, ultimately, we're taking the energy of the moon. So writing it personally, we're going to go through, remember, life, death, and rebirth. You need to create something, destroy something so it can be reborn. When you create a manifestation, you are planting a seed in the astral plane so it can come down to earth. So if you are having trouble visualizing it, Katsu, and you're comfortable with astral projection, creating a safe space in the astral, you can create whatever you want and protect it with we've talked about that electricity energy, that dome, and literally go plant some seeds of what you want. And every time you imagine planting the seed, you want to see it grow. So you would go back during that 2-week waxing cycle and see that plant you created grow. Now, when you hit the full moon, That plant is going to blossom, and then you're going to watch it die over the 2 weeks of the waning period. So that's one way for visualization if you're really good at that. If you want something a little more simple, the easiest one that I know of personally is taking the paper, right? And now it's important, at least in the hoodoo tradition, that you make this paper, it doesn't have like perfect lines. You want to make sure you rip it so it's kind of like papyrus or whatever. It's a little bit more ragged. You're going to write your manifestation. Now let's add some levels to this. Choose a color, write it in that color. Remember, we talked about color magic. What does your manifestation, what are the associations with it? Check the moon cycle. Check the astrological sign of the moon. What kind of energy are we working for? Are you trying to manifest new love? Are you trying to manifest money? Figure out what time the moon cycle and what astrological sign will help you with that. Now that we've done this, you need to speak it out loud, and you need a cauldron or a fire-safe bowl. You're going to take that manifestation, you're going to read it out loud, and then you're going to fold it towards you because you're bringing something to you. We bring something to us, we bring our manifestation towards us. You're going to do that multiple times. You turn the paper 90 degrees. So let's imagine we turn it this way. Now we're turning it 90 degrees to the right. Boom. Fold again. Turn right 90 degrees. Fold again, turn right. Do it until it is literally a teeny tiny little thing. Light it on fire, get rid of it. You've manifested, brought it towards you, and now you have to release your manifestation. This is the hardest part for everybody, myself included. You kind of need to forget about it. You need to just let it go. You'd be like, the universe, God, Goddess is going to take care of me. This will come to me. This money will come to me. This new job will come to me. This is where faith is really, really important. And I know that some of us struggle with faith, but you can't do magic and not have faith. And that's the truest thing in the world. So we've got about 5 minutes left. I see here in the chat that you just bought some beautiful pink and lily. Oh, you love lilies, Moonfire. That's so fun. I also love lilies. I have to be careful though, because they're toxic to kitty cats. If you have something to say, you can just unmute yourself. It's okay. No? Okay. All right. Well, this has been really fun, you guys. I love talking about moon magic, and I hope later we'll talk about planetary magic in a more advanced way. There are a lot of levels to this. Remember, this is just the surface level of getting in touch and understanding. When we work with the moon right now, it's most important to create a new schedule for ourselves, create a new calendar for us to live by. We need to be able to separate, and eventually we separate our magical and our mundane lives, but at some point it all comes back together. Because remember, the ancient people knew this. Science and magic were one and the same. Magic and mundane life were one and the same. We remember, as above, so below. And with that, my friends, I'm going to leave you for now. I hope to see you tonight. We will be playing games on Discord at 6 p.m. PST, which is Pacific Standard Time. I am really looking forward to hanging out with all of you and celebrating the full moon in Scorpio. So check on Instagram in just a few minutes. I'm going to be going live. Love you all. See you later.